Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. All right. Looks like it's working now. So just as I'm doing something on my phone, I'll get into it right away. Okay, so I just used Grok for this because it was simpler to put into a side-by-side comparison. But it's going to be the Conservative Party, CPC, and Liberal Party, LPC platforms, just to go over a couple of the platform. Well, the two main platforms anyway, because I don't believe the NDP really play a major role in actually winning the Prime Minister seat here in Canada. At least I don't think so. I guess it depends on how many seats they manage to get, but I don't think they're going to play a major role. So yeah, I believe the election for Canada is going to be coming up on April. Well, obviously April because it's this month, but April the 28th, I believe. Yeah, April 28th on Monday. And as I'm going over it, if anyone has anything they want to say, feel free. I haven't gone over these policies yet or anything like that, so this is the first time I'm actually fully reading both sides, especially on a side-by-side comparison. Whether it's looked at as a fair comparison, I'm not quite sure. So for the just 1 second. So let me quickly finish something up. Hello, everyone. Okay. So the first policy is taxes. Always a big thing. So the Liberal Party, the LPC, their plan is to cut lowest income tax bracket from 15% to 14%, saving dual income households $825 a year. Cancel proposed capital gains tax hike above $250,000. I don't think there should be that anyway, but just going over the policy is not really my opinion on some of it. No changes to TFSA limits or seniors income exemption mentioned. I guess simple and straight to the point. Doesn't seem like much savings per year. Not when you compare it to the other side, at least. That's, of course, seeing as all things roughly equal in that they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do, or are able to actually get stuff passed, which is generally the problem. So the CPC is cut lowest income tax bracket from 15% to 12.75%, phased over 2 years. That's okay. Okay, so well, still that's 900. That's if it actually gets, they're able to actually get that through. Defer capital gains tax if proceeds reinvested in Canada until 2026. I think that should be longer, but and I'm not quite sure why they would put it at 2026. But increase TFSA contributions limits by $5,000 a year for Canadian company investments. I don't think that's a bad thing. Exempt $10,000 of seniors' working income from tax. That's a good thing for the seniors. But I don't think that should just be for the seniors. That should be across the board. Yeah, if I'm just looking at that with the taxes, I'd say the CPC has a bit of an edge on that. Of course, I'm not quite sure. Taxes are always at the top three or so of main things for the citizens to be at the top of their list on what they actually worry about. But I think it favors the conservatives for that, for sure. Plus, I mean, if we're looking at who it is, uh, Carney, at least from what I've seen, trying to leave bias out of it, but obviously it always plays a part. But I think Carney is basically a Trudeau 2.0, for whatever that opinion's worth. Next is the housing. The LPC removed GST on homes up to $1 million for first-time buyers. Build 3 million homes by 2030 with federal funding and rent control requirements. I'd like to know what the requirements are. I should have maybe looked into that. Direct CMHC to offer low-interest mortgages to working/middle class families. Again, I just think stuff like that should be across the board. I don't. It's kind of annoying when they put things just for certain people. Establish nationwide rent control tied to federal housing funds. And for the CPC, remove GST on new homes under 1.3 million. Okay, so that looks like it's across the board, not just for first-time home buyers. At least if I understand that properly. Cover 50% of development charge reduction up to $25,000 a home. That's a good thing, I guess, for sure. Cancel Liberal Housing Accelerator and other federal housing programs. I guess it depends on which ones they're specifically talking about. Grok should have expanded on some of these, but I guess I should have been a bit more specific on what I was asking it. Build 2.3 million homes in 5 years via private sector incentives. That's a good thing. Now, whether they'll actually get 2.3 million homes built is another thing, but create shovel-ready zones for faster construction. That would be a good thing. It's always good to be prepared, not having to actually try and get it done on the time when it's supposed to start. Okay, economy and deficit, that's always a big thing. The LPC, 130 billion in new spending over 4 years, 332 billion a year, 28 billion in unspecified cuts. That's like, I don't know why they wouldn't specify the cuts that they're looking at. And I'm assuming that's just a one-time thing, so even for 1 year. Deficit projected at 225 billion over 4 years versus 131.4 billion previously. Okay, maybe they actually mean 28 billion per year within the 4 years. Yeah, I would be interested to see how that would actually play out. Balance operational budget by 2028. 48 billion capital deficit in 2028. use AI to make government operations efficient. Oh, that's bullshit. No, that's not a good thing. That's I'm not wholly opposed to some aspects of AI, but I don't agree with it actually being involved in major operations like that. You in some regards, you are in some positions, you just need people. People can make mistakes, but we can forgive human mistakes. You can't forgive human or AI mistakes. And who's to say that that AI is not going to be biased in a certain way, which is the big problem. So this right here, I would like just that alone for me. I would already just say fuck it. I wouldn't vote for the Liberal Party at all just for that. I'm totally against AI in that regard. For the CPC, reduce federal deficit by 70%, 100 billion over 4 years by cutting bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and CBC funding. Maintain Radio Canada. That's a good thing. I ultimately think CBC should be just completely defunded from the government, aside from the Radio Canada, because I think that's for the emergency broadcasting and stuff like that. So that is in a way needed for stuff to get out when it's needed. But overall, CBC should be defunded completely. No government funding at all for that. If they can't make it on their own, they shouldn't be at the top like that, because they're the biggest media network in Canada. And some people, I'll be fair and say they are moderately left, but it's definitely clear when the Liberals are in government that CBC leans towards them heavily. Balance operational budget in 3 years. Run small capital spending deficit. Again, they could have clarified on that more. I'm actually thinking that this is actually not grok. I'm thinking that that's actually just what their policy is for that. Again, economy and deficit, I would definitely say I'd lean more towards CPC. I'll say it straight out. I'm personally more of a Maxime Bernier guy. That's the PPC, People's Party of Canada. But the problem with him is he doesn't hold any seats, and the chances of him actually getting elected are very slim. As much as I would prefer him over Poilievre, there's no way it's going to happen. Not in the foreseeable future, anyway. And again, this all leads to if they're actually going to do it. Trade and tariffs. This is probably for sure another big one, mainly because of the talks from Trump and stuff like that. Some Canadians, I haven't looked at any of the polls or anything like that, so I don't know how that actually lines up with the polling data for citizens, and I don't wholly trust the polling anyway for the most part, but I would just blanket it as a 50-50 issue for sure, just because we are supposed to be Canada, but I have thoughts on stuff like that as well. And if I were to be objective, actually, I don't even think I could be objective, because people want to talk like Canada is a sovereign country, but we don't have our own sovereignty. We're technically still under British rule, and I think that's a big fucking mistake. I don't agree with us still being under the monarch. We should be able to pick our vote in our own head of state and everything. We shouldn't have somebody else to decide that, because that right there signifies that we're not a sovereign state. Not when a different country picks our head of state. There are some like minor things with that like it's not like they have operational control over government, but for the most part, if they really wanted to, it could very easily go back into that. Anyway, trade and tariffs. 5 billion trade diversification corridor fund for ports and highways. Uh, I need a bit of a more breakdown on that because I'm not quite sure on that. So hang on, I'm just getting a better understanding of that one. The Liberal Party is proposing to spend 5 billion to create trade diversification corridor fund. That means they want to invest in better ports, highways, and other infrastructure to make it easier and faster for Canadian products to reach different international markets, not just the U.S. This could include expanding or upgrading ports to handle more goods, improving highways and railways that connect producers to those ports, helping businesses ship their products to more countries around the world. Yeah, okay. Set by Canadian standards for federal infrastructure, example, steel and aluminum. The broader thing with these tariffs is I think it's based more on emotional reaction than it is actually logical. That they're logically trying to figure stuff out, which kind of presents a problem when you're trying to set policies. Considering the U.S. is our biggest ally and neighbor, like I get that it was a big hit when Trump actually said about Canada becoming the 51st state, but you have to take the emotion out of it, not especially the immediate emotional reaction. Invest in clean energy and critical minerals to diverse. Invest in clean energy and critical minerals to diversify trade away from the U.S. Yeah, see, like it's just ridiculous. I mean, I get that Canada should be more self-sufficient, definitely, on a lot of things. But you also can't kill the relationship with our neighbor, like, because if it really gets bad enough, the U.S. would crush us, and that would be it. The CPC use revenue from expanded U.S. trade to fund Canadian armed forces. We definitely need our military upgraded, that's for sure. Like bigly. Create Keep Canadians Working Fund for businesses hit by U.S. tariffs. That's not such a bad thing. That's not such a bad thing because they're just trying to limit the impact, which overall is good for us. Which, looking at it from a Canadian perspective, I mean, that's what you would want, especially working towards Canada becoming more independent and not having to rely on its neighbors all the time. Fast track mines, LNG terminals, and pipelines in shovel ready zones to boost exports. That's also a good thing. The CPC, I think, has a good basis to work on from there. But Pierre has also come out against Trump, and I don't think ultimately what he's all said has done much good. And Trump, one of the ways to see it is like Trump actually making the statement about working, or it's easier to work with the liberals than it is with the conservatives. I totally agree on, and technically that should have actually given the CPC a boost overall, but Canada is a weird place for stuff like that. Like, you'd expect it if Canadians don't like Trump, and Trump saying that about the liberals, you would think that the liberals would push away from that. Except the problem is they don't, and they're going to double down on it, and they don't actually understand what Trump is saying with that. At least from my perspective, right? Like, this is just my opinion. So ultimately, Trump saying that it's easier to work with the liberals means it's going to be harder to negotiate with somebody like Pierre. That would be a benefit for Canada, not a negative. Being easier to work with the liberals means that he finds it easier to basically walk all over them. Again, that's my speculation on what was said, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Not for what Trump has shown us already. Whether you like him or hate him, I mean, that's besides the point. Defense and military. 18 billion plus for defense to exceed NATO 2% GDP target by 2030. Yeah, well, we should have been at that already, but when it comes to NATO, I don't think we should still be in NATO. I don't think NATO should even still exist, but that's a different topic. Boost soldier salaries for recruitment, create defense procurement agency. I guess that's not so bad. 420 million for Arctic sovereignty, drones and surveillance. 420 million for Arctic. I don't get the purpose of spending 420 million on that. Like, for Canada, that's a lot. Like, that's an extreme amount. Like, that should be delegated for us here, not the Arctic. But review F-35 contract partner for next gen aircraft. Well, if that's going to boost our military, that would be not bad. Depending on how they actually plan on doing that. The CPC meet NATO 2% GDP spending target. Oh, that's kind of vague. Speed up veterans' disability approvals. Auto approve after 4 months. That's a good thing. Slash foreign aid to fund military. sell Canadian oil to Ukraine via pipelines. I get the trade thing, I really do. But what I don't see a difference in whether you're giving aid to them or you're gonna supply them with oil. I don't see the difference with that. Again, that's another step towards trying to distance a bit with the U.S. And so you're going to distance yourselves with your closest partner and closest neighbor, but you're not. But you're going to do that across the fucking world. Like, it just makes no sense to me. Reinforce Arctic sovereignty with unspecified investments. That's not. That's horribly put. I gotta check that out because that's. No, it's about the climate stuff. Yeah, okay. I don't know how much that is actually an immediate thing that's needed, but an unspecified investments, that's seriously vague. Like, so it could be more than 420 million. Healthcare. Big big platform policy. Always up there in the top 5 for sure. And Canada's healthcare sucks. 5.4 billion over 4 years for healthcare, 4 billion for hospitals and clinics. Add thousands of doctors via more medical school/residency spaces. Well, we definitely need more doctors. Like, the wait times just on that alone when you go in is like, it's fucking horrible. Streamline credential recognition for health professionals. Ensure primary care access by 2030. Expand pharmacare to essential medicines. I'm not totally against that. For this here, as long as the main focus is actually Canada first. Because the problem with some of these policies also is that they say stuff like this, but they could mean the immigration part too, and that's not technically helping Canada. That's helping the people who come here. You could say it helps the patients, except the problem is a lot of that income. Oh, sorry, a lot of that income that the foreigners or immigrants get is sent back to families in different countries. So it's not really boosting our economy or anything like that. So that would be an issue I'd see for that. The CPC, honor provincial health transfer agreements, maintain pharmacare and dental care, defund safe supply programs, sue opioid manufacturers to fund 1 billion over 4 years for addiction recovery, 50,000 people. That would be a good thing. I think opioid use is like a huge fucking healthcare concern. The drug problem itself is a huge issue, especially when you are looking at stuff like them actually having the safe zones or whatever like that for the drug use and stuff. Where was it? I think it was in BC or somewhere in Alberta. That outside the this is just one of the videos I seen from one of the reporters. Outside a hospital, they actually recorded that there was a vending machine that was giving out, or that you could go up and get free instruments or whatever for the drug users, like pipes and stuff like that. Like it's fucking mind boggling. Because then you're just giving an easy access to stuff. You're not actually helping them to stop. You're just encouraging it more. Tie recovery funding to drug-free duration. Yeah, I could see that go along with that. Not exactly much of a healthcare platform for that, but immigration. Maintain 2025 immigration cap at 395,000. No set adjustment timeline. No mention of Century Initiative. I don't know what the Century Initiative is. Oh, they want to try and grow Canada's population to over 100 million people by the year 2100. Why 100 million? The initiative believes that a larger population will help Canada stay economically competitive in a world where many countries are growing fast, support aging demographics by having more working-age people, maintain strong public services like healthcare and pensions, increase Canada's global influence. How do they suggest getting there? Increased immigration, smart urban planning and housing, investments in education, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Why is it controversial? Overcrowding and housing affordability, strain on infrastructure, public services, environmental impacts, culture and identity concerns around high levels of immigration. Oh, yeah, that's part of it at least. Yeah, I think that's just ridiculous. I don't think the idea of bringing people in to reach a certain population, that's like we have a birth rate crisis. We literally have a birth rate crisis. And that's not just in Canada, that's everywhere. So it doesn't matter how many immigrants you bring in. The fact is oh, it's just so fucking stupid. Like, it's like they don't see the bigger picture of that. Like, just for example, you're going to try and reach the 100 million population in Canada. So you have immigration set up so that you're going to bring in people from India and, well, we'll just say India because they have like over 1 billion people. If India is not at replacement rate and we're not at a replacement rate, both countries are going to lose fucking population. It's only an immediate gratification. It's not anything that's actually going to be a long-term cure for anything. You can't replace population by just bringing people from a different population in, because that's not how you keep your population. Like, you need the birth rate at replacement rate. People need to have babies. We need more families. We need more mothers. We don't need more immigrants to try and fill our population. That's the most ridiculous fucking idea I ever heard. Like, and 395,000, like, a year, I'm assuming. That's a lot of people, especially when you're dealing with a population of like 40 million or so. It's almost 500,000 people per year. Like, that's yeah, I just don't get their thinking on that. The CPC cap immigration, reject century initiative. That's good. That's 100 million population by 2100. Yeah, that's a direct nail on that. So that's good. Allow temporary foreign workers only in rare cases. Example, farming. That's, I can go along with that, but we don't need immigration. We need more pushing on people to actually, like, get into nuclear families, to create nuclear families. But that's under immigration, so that's whatever on that. Okay, we're at environment. How much more is here? Okay, not that much. Okay, environment. Scrap consumer carbon tax. Maintain industrial carbon pricing. 1 billion for home retrofits, heat pumps. Retrofit all buildings by 2050. Create 10 national parks, 15 urban parks, $94 million for none but power upgrades. Well, scrapping the carbon tax is a good thing. We never needed that to begin with. And more spending. Always more spending. Like, we don't need the government to actually do that. Like, it's actually ridiculous when you think about it. What you need is, I guess you could have a standardized system for it, but ultimately it doesn't make any sense for people to work, make money, give a slew of fucking taxes per year to the government just to do this for our homes. Because if there was like a guideline for that, okay, the more money the people keep, they can do this stuff on their own. They don't need to rely on the government for that. The government being in our fucking lives so much is one of the biggest problems we've ever had. The CPC, scrap consumer carbon tax, no clear stance on industrial carbon pricing. That's okay. Support pipelines. That's for sure. We need that. Example, Energy East for oil exports. But that's tied to also sending or selling the oil to Ukraine. And I'm not a fan of the war, so I'll just put that right out there. Or, no, I'm not in favor of Canada being involved in the war. I don't think any other country should be involved in that war. Let Europe deal with that. Limited focus on climate, prioritize resource development. That's a good policy. Public service. Cap public service size. Use AI for efficiency. Fuck again. Train the people better. You don't need AI for that. It actually doesn't make it more efficient, actually. Well, okay, that's maybe a lie. In some cases it could, but you need hands-on people. I'm not in favor of AI replacing people like that. No specific cuts to consultants or monitoring mentioned. Okay, that's Grok putting that in there for sure. The CPC reduced public service via attrition, replaced 2 of the 3 departing employees. Okay, so limiting the amount of people there. Okay, yeah. Cut consultant spending by $10 billion annually. That's a good thing. Monitor public servants for task completion. That's a good thing. There's no reason why that the public servants can't actually get monitored on their completion of stuff, on whatever they're doing daily. Okay, that's on the next section. Justice and crime. Strengthen bail system. Repeal Liberal Bills C5 and C75. Oh. Okay, well, I started on the CPC. Okay, well. Okay, just looking up the... Okay, Bill C5 passed 2022 goal. Make the justice system fair, especially for marginalized groups. Key points. Eliminated some mandatory minimum sentences, especially for drug and firearm offenses. What? I'm on the fence with the drug stuff, but firearm offenses, depends on what exactly they mean by firearm offenses. Promotes alternatives to prison, like house arrest for less serious non-violent crimes. Yeah, well, yeah, who's going to determine that? The activist fucking judges? Aim to reduce overrepresentation of Indigenous and Black Canadians in prison. Yeah, well, if they broke laws, then they should be in prison for whatever that means for that. Bill C-75, ease bail conditions for minor non-violent offenses, restricted jury challenges. Yeah, okay, so whatever. Use notwithstanding clause for multiple life sentences for multiple homicides. 3 strikes, law, 10 plus years sentence, 3 times serious offenders. New assault of intimate partner offense, 1st degree murder for killing partner to the last child. I think those are good things. This here, no specific justice reforms mentioned in available platform details. Focus on health economic measures over crime. I don't think that's a good thing. Raise RRSP withdrawal age from 71 to 73. Allow seniors to earn $34,000 tax-free. I don't know about that one, that top one, but okay. Reduce RRIF minimum withdrawal by 25% for 1 year. Increase guaranteed income supplement by 5% for 1 year. Okay, give me 1 minute. I'll be back. Something came up. Hello, hello, I'm back. Yeah, maybe I should have Grok actually expand on these if the information's available. But whatever. It's a little late to do that with this right now. Or well, it's not, but okay, for the LPC. No specific indigenous commitments and platform. Past Liberal focus on recognition or reconciliation not detailed for 2025. Permanent infrastructure funding stream for First Nations. Permanent infrastructure. I don't like wording like that. No mention of UNDRIP or truth and reconciliation calls to action. Okay, other notable policies. 12 million a year to commercialize AI. 100 million a year AI adoption tax credit. AI adoption tax credit. I'd be interested. I should look this up later to see if I can find if they expanded on it. $20,000 IVF coverage for one cycle. I mean, I guess, but you could just adopt a pro birth stance or pro natal stance, like impose sanctions on Russia for Ukraine ceasefire. Oh yeah, that hasn't worked so far. Like this is just a non thing. Like it's a non policy. They shouldn't even have that on there. Defund CBC, ban CBC executive bonuses. Recognize. Yeah, wow. I don't know why the executives would be getting bonuses when they're basically getting a free ride anyway. Recognize trade / apprenticeships for RESPs. Support Ukraine via oil sales. Exclude Russia from G7. In a way, I get the push on Russia, but like, I think we're basically like, I would just go over the notes and then go back to that part. The notes. CPC emphasizes tax cuts, deregulation, and private sector driven growth with a focus on deficit reduction and resource development. Their platform is critiqued for relying on optimistic revenue projection. LPC prioritizes government-led investments in infrastructure, health, and clean energy, with higher deficits and a focus on social programs. Their platform is graded higher for fiscal transparency. We don't need more government. I don't care what anybody says. We don't need more. Both parties address U.S. tariff threats but differ in approach. CPC resource exports, LPC diversification, and buy Canadian. Some LPC policies, example justice indigenous issues, lack detail in available sources, possibly due to late platform release. Costs are estimates. CPC's plan costs $12.2 billion a year. LPC's $5.4 billion a year for tax measures alone, with broader spending higher. Yeah, so this shit right here. I seriously don't get what they hope to achieve by pushing and pushing and pushing on Russia. I mean, I get it. I get it. Nobody likes the fact that there's a war going on there and that Russia went into the parts of Ukraine. But this isn't just a black and white issue. People like to think it is, but it isn't. Like, Russia plainly stated that this was their red line. Ukraine was their red line. Don't go into that red line. I think they had previous red lines before that, but NATO was just busy expanding out there. Now, whether that was by means to I don't think that was NATO's initial intention, but there was an obvious threat from the Soviet Union, right? So they had to crush that. That's fine. NATO should have been disbanded after that. That's my opinion. Like it or don't. I mean, you can have yours, but the fact is Russia had a line after that, especially with NATO bringing in more places out there, right? More members into NATO. And the problem with that is once you start expanding uh, a supposed defensive military force and bringing in places that were under the Soviet Union, which I can totally see why Putin would see them as Russian territory. Yeah, that's the word. But that aside, like let's leave those out. So NATO got these countries in, they become members, and it became the point where Ukraine was the line. Don't push that line. And what did NATO keep on doing? They kept on pushing the line, kept on pushing the line. Russia even wrote a letter stating that this was their line. They warned them that this was their line. Don't cross it. It was just fucking ignored. Then NATO busy fucking spouting off that Ukraine, while it would be a process, was going to be brought into as a member of NATO. Even though Russia was clearly stating that this was their red line. Don't fucking touch it, because that's their fence between them and the rest of the fucking world, right? But they didn't listen, so they kept on pushing. They're still freaking pushing. And I have other countries that aren't even in Europe that are pushing. So you're going to kick him out of G7. What's that going to do? That's going to push China and Russia closer together. China is already a big enemy of the fucking world. Of the world, I'll say. Not just of one place. Not just of the US, not just of Canada. They're fucking got their claws into everything across the globe. And I don't even care what side you're on, whether you're for Ukraine or for Russia. Like, if somebody comes up to me and 2 feet in front of me, I say, this is my red line, and we're in a heated argument. This is my red line. Don't cross it. But if you cross that line, then there's going to be problems. And as soon as you cross that line, we have fucking problems. That's the long and short of it. I mean, you can't be warned about something, told not to do something because you're gonna fucking provoke shit, and then you do that anyway. Obviously, shit's gonna come from that. And I'm not a Putin apologist. I'm not anything like that. But Russia is no small sitting duck. You push them hard enough, they got nuclear weapons. They have a huge population. It could be devastating if they get in bed with fucking China completely. I just don't get people's thoughts on that shit at all. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm absolutely fine with saying Putin's a dictator. But I'll also say in the same breath that Zelensky is a fucking dictator as well. He won't hold elections. Sure, they're at war, but they weren't before. He's imprisoned and shut down media outlets that were critical of him. Thrown religious people in jail. Forced conscription. And the thing with this is, if you would put everything Zelensky's done onto any other country, people would be calling them a dictator-ran country. But this guy does it, and everybody fucking kowtows to him, and it's fucking disgusting. And Canada, 100%, should not fucking do what the CPC is saying. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of Polyev, aside from a few other things. But I'd much rather the PPC come in. But what are you gonna do? We need the liberals out. That's the biggest thing. We need the fucking liberals out. Anyway, I think that's enough of going over the policies. Anyways, yeah, I think I'm going to call it there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in the next one, whenever that might be, if I find something interesting to stream about. I want to start streaming more. I definitely do. I've said this before, but the laptop I have is not exactly the best for streaming and running multiple programs, so I can't do it smoothly enough to make it good. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you in the next one. Take care and bye-bye.